Good morning. Today we have with us Dr. Vageshwari Deswal, feminist activist and also professor at Law Faculty, Delhi University.
Thank you.
So to begin with, I would like to ask you, what are the different measures that the government has employed to help women who are victims of the various crimes?
So, Srishti, there are a lot of measures that the government has employed to protect women who have been victimized by any kind of crime, whether we are talking about sexual assault, be it rape, be it acid attacks, be it domestic violence. But the thing is, how successful these measures are, that is of prime importance. Before the year 2008, we did not even have the definition for the term crime in our laws. It was only in the year 2008 that we introduced that who is a victim in our criminal procedure code, because that was recommended by the Law Commission and also by the Malimat Committee on Criminal Justice Reforms. So after that, we started thinking about that, and the push came in the year 2012, December, after the Nirbhaya incident, when various committees were set up. There was Justice Usha Mehra Committee, there was Justice Verma Committee, after which there were so many amendments that were brought about under our criminal laws. Okay. So out of the measures that we have mainly suggested, one is providing compensation. See, it is the duty of the state to provide protection to the person and property of all individuals, be that men, women, trans persons, be that anyone. And in case the state has committed any kind of a blunder in its responsibility, due to which, see, if we are not protecting our women against sexual assault, against acid attacks, whose responsibility is it? It is the state's responsibility. So whether the accused can be apprehended, even in those cases where the accused has not been apprehended, the state has to get its act together. We need to provide immediate medical attention to the victim. We need to provide some sort of a legal assistance to the victim and assistance in registering the FIR. At the same time, in addition to the medical treatment, we also need to provide the medical, psychological counseling. Because, see, the physical scars may go away, but the impact that it has on their psyche, on their mind, that is everlasting. So for that, we have to make arrangements for counseling also. Then coming to compensation. Money is required, whether it is for treatment, whether it is for rehabilitation. So now what has happened? You must have heard about the Nirbhaya Fund.
Yes.
That was set up after the Nirbhaya incident. And what happened that was with a corpus of 1,000 crore rupees, that it was set up by the central government. And out of that, we are providing funds to the Central Victim Compensation Scheme, from where on it is being disbursed to various states. Because every state has to have its own victim compensation scheme. So this was set up, this was what we say, we had a proposal for the same in the budget of the year 2013. In 2015, we finally set it up. In 2017, when the states were asked as to what they were doing with the money, it was unfortunately realized that not a single penny had been spent out of that Nirbhaya Fund. So then all the states were asked, they were directed to ensure that victims were getting the money. So it was in 2023 December that finally, when again stock was taken as to what is happening. So now at least 70% of that fund has been utilized. Utilization means it has actually reached those acid attack survivors, those sexual assault survivors, and those people. See, another positive thing when we talk about compensation is, initially we did not have compensation, was not a feature of our criminal laws. It was only in civil laws that we would talk about restitution. But it was when we acknowledged that, yes, there are victims of crime. Initially, victims of crimes were sidelined in the criminal justice system. But now, victims, they have been taken care of. And now, even if the accused is asked to pay a fine, ordinarily fine was seen as a punishment, and the amount of fine, it went to the state. But now, that fine, it also goes to the victim. But then it depends, what is the capacity of the offender to pay? So depending on that, sometimes if the offender is not in a position to pay much, so whatever fine we can realize from that person, that goes to the victim. In addition to that, it is the state's responsibility to always ensure that the victims, they are being compensated. And compensation not only for medical treatment, but for future psychological counseling, rehabilitation and all.
So, as you talked about Nirbhaya funds, there is also one-stop centers or Sakhi centers that has been introduced by the help of Nirbhaya funds. So, can you share a little bit about one-stop centers with us?
See, these one-stop centers, they are set up either by the government, sometimes NGOs, they are also running these one-stop centers. Most of the times what we are doing is that they are being run from the premises of some hospitals who might be attached with the police stations. The objective behind these one-stop centers was that, see, although we've come to realize that once a woman is being victimized, it is very difficult for her to approach the police. So we have concepts such as zero FIR. Initially, it was only recommended by the report, then the judiciary had acknowledged it. But now, when we are talking about introducing the BNS, which is the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, and the Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita, zero FIR has been given a more concrete shape. So women don't have to run from one place to the other to determine where the jurisdiction is. They can approach any police station, and it is the responsibility of the police to register an FIR. They'll not give a number to that FIR in case the crime did not take place in their jurisdiction. And that is why we call it the zero FIR. And within 15 days, they have to transfer it to the appropriate jurisdiction. So, one thing, registration of FIR. Now, once the police gets the information, then the next step is the woman, she wants some sort of a medical assistance. Then she wants some legal aid amount that should be given to her immediately. The state has made provisions for the same. But then again, she doesn't know where the district legal services authorities are. So how does she go there? For her to approach the hospital to get herself medically examined. Now, all these things are very tough. So when we talk about one-stop centers, they are providing everything under one roof. So once the police gets a case, they send her to the hospital because the hospital is attached to that police station. The woman is attended to. The police, they inform the magistrate. If any statement of the victim is to be recorded, the magistrate, we have to make provision. Either the magistrate has to be brought there, or in case the victim can go there, it all depends. It's all depending upon the facts and circumstances of each and every case. Then registration of FIR also, it has been made mandatory. Now the police officer, he cannot refuse. In case any woman comes to him and discloses that there is some offense of a sexual nature which has taken place against me, registration of FIR, and that is to be done not only by any male officer, by a female police officer. If there is no police officer available, they have to make arrangements for any other woman officer who will come there, who will record her statements. Sometimes what happens due to these offenses being committed against these women, sometimes they are in a state of shock or they are not able to speak up. See, what happens if acid is thrown on a woman's face? Her lips might melt. She is not able to speak. And then when it comes to providing information to the police, the recording has been made mandatory. Now, no police officer can tell her that, no, this is not a cognizable offense or this is not something which is so important that I have to necessarily register an FIR. In case they do so, there is a provision under 166A of the Indian Penal Code, and even the police officer can be taken to task. He can be put behind the bars for dereliction of his duty. Then what happens? That the FIR, it is to be registered as far as practicable by a female officer. If there is no female police officer available in the police station, it is the responsibility of the male officers to ensure the availability of any other woman officer who will come and record. Because, see, in cases of sexual assault, there is so much of a stigma, a feeling of shame, helplessness, guilt associated that women, they are reluctant to depose in front of men. So in case there is any other woman who can empathize with her, maybe she can open up. She can depose freely and frankly. Then in such cases, what happens? Sometimes if a victim of a sexual assault or maybe an acid attack, she is shocked, she's in trauma. Or suppose acid is thrown on a woman's face and it leads to the melting of her lips. She's not able to speak. In such cases, what we have to do is we have to take every step to ensure that her statement is recorded at any place where she is comfortable. So at a place of her convenience, it could be her home, it could be her hospital, and the statement has to be recorded in the presence of a special educator or a translator so that what she wants to say is actually conveyed so that the meaning is not lost. Okay. And then we have to also ensure that her statement is being videographed, so that if later on it has to be presented before the courts, in case it has to be cross examined, or in case we want to look for more meaning from it, so that it can be available before the courts. Then see what happens, that these one stop centers, they are providing all sorts of facilities. If a woman reaches a one stop center, they'll make arrangements for her FIR to be recorded. They will make arrangements, they'll contact the legal aid person, they'll contact the district legal services authorities. Let's see, if she needs a legal assistance, that needs to be provided to her. In case there is any compensation, like in cases of acid attack, immediately information is to be given to the magistrate. They pass an order, after which within 15 days she is to be given some sort of an amount, and then within 2 months the entire amount is to be disbursed to her. So they one-stop centers, the woman reaches that place, they will arrange for a doctor to come there, they'll arrange for counselors to come there. Because the treatment, it could be lengthy, it could be very expensive. Time takes its toll. And see what happens, these women, sometimes they are no longer in a position to fight or sustain themselves. So these one-stop centers are places where these women, they can stay also, and they get all sorts of assistance, whatever they want.
So, this is what we know about one-stop centers. How effective do you say that they are on ground, and where would they be lacking?
Now, that is one question that I was hoping that you would ask me. Because although it is all very fine on paper, but there are very few one-stop centers that are operational. One thing is that they are severely understaffed. Second, there is a funds crunch. When we talk about the legal aid lawyers who are associated with them, more often than not, lawyers who have a flourishing practice, they refuse to take up these legal aid cases unless and until it's a high profile case, or unless there is some sort of a media attention involved. So usually the newcomers, they are these legal aid, they are empaneled with their legal services authority. So the quality of legal aid that we get, it is not up to the mark. Then coming to counselors also. See, one who has a flourishing practice will not come, because what the state pays them is a pittance as compared to what they earn from private practice. So although we have linked them with certain, sometimes running out of hospitals, sometimes running out of police stations, women's cells and all, but then again, most of the time, if personnel are not available there, or if there is a shortage of funds, and then coming to these shelter homes for women and all, the condition is not as up to the mark or as we would like it to be. So what happens, a victim of crime, she is brought there. Sometimes she might be a victim of incest. Sometimes she might be a victim of domestic abuse, violence. She realizes that she is not better off at this place. So they return back to their families or homes, the place where they were initially victimized. So this is a very sorry state of affairs.
So, have you personally ever experienced something where a victim approached a one-stop center or any facility that is provided for their safety, but has not been able to get the help that they needed?
There have been cases, not a victim, but there were other women, like we go for these various training programs, and there were women from this Ministry of Women and Child Development who were working as protection officers in the state of Haryana. So while talking to them, so what these women said that, see, here another thing, Srishti, that I want to highlight is that although we have women officers working for welfare of other women, but sensitization is a big issue. See, many times women, they disbelieve the stories that rape victims tell them, or that victims of abuse tell them. Many times we start questioning the victim herself, that why did it happen to her? Okay. Or maybe she did something to provoke the husband, or maybe she's not a good wife, or maybe she's not a woman of a good character. So when we raise questions on the victim, we are disbelieving her. She also, I mean, she would be reluctant to then seek help from us. And when we are disbelieving her, you can very well expect the kind of help that we would be advancing to them. So this is one big issue that I noticed this, because when those protection officers, they were narrating their tales, but then they also told me that the kind of conditions in which these women, they are kept, See what happens, why a woman, she puts up with domestic abuses, because the moment she'll complain against her husband, she'll be thrown out of her house. The girl's parents, they are reluctant to take her back. Then she is scared of losing custody over her children. So even when she comes, she is not very, very sure. And then the kind of conditions in which we keep her, what happens? She realizes that maybe she was better off in her family. She goes back, and now the abuse, it further increases. So this is a vicious cycle of re-victimization, wherein unless and until we have a very, very strong mechanism, wherein we are giving these women some compensation, relief, we are providing them appropriate training for rehabilitation so that they don't have to go back. And then again, these protracted trial procedures. We will provide her a compensation, we will provide her maintenance from her husband. But then the maintenance comes too late and too less. And then the husband is not paying compensation. The husband is not paying his maintenance that he's supposed to pay. And that maintenance, again, whether that is sufficient for her to take care of herself. So, multiple questions.
So, what would you say should be done to improve the condition of these amenities that are being provided to help women?
See, I've thought about these things many times when I come to know about these problems that women are facing. So sometimes I feel that, see, instead of hiring counselors to just come and work on an hourly basis or on case to case basis, it would be better if we could hire full time counselors, or better if we could associate them with the government employees, those who are employed with the hospitals, if they could have full-time duty in those one-stop centers. It's not that a woman comes and then we are looking for a counselor, we are calling for him, and then the person has to find out time. Similarly, if within these one-stop centers where we are running them, if we could have full-time doctors, full-time lawyers who are getting full pay, okay, from the state, so maybe there would be a better incentive for them to work. That is something that should be done. And then women police officers. And then, of course, we have these protection officers who should be entrusted with the responsibility of ensuring that, see, it is not that the woman, she reaches a safe house or that the order is passed. After that, whether the order is being implemented. So all those hurdles, they need to be taken care of. It is only then that women would not be reluctant to approach these places where they can seek some sort of a redressal. Now what happens? They are coming, they are being told by people that yes, all these facilities are available, but it is subpar, the level of facilities that they get, due to which sometimes they repent that I should not have taken this step in the first place, because now it has become very difficult for her to go back. So these places should be centers from where she has a clear vision how to move forward, and there should be no looking behind.
So, despite having one-stop centers and different institutions to help victims, women who are facing different issues every day, challenges every day, we still have problems like last year a woman was paraded naked on 26th January, and we still have issues like that. So, what additional policies would you suggest that the government should implement to ensure the safety of women in India?
Srishti, disrobing. It was recognized as a crime in the year 2013. Before that, we did not acknowledge that this is something that happens, and we all know that it happens. See, witch hunting is very, very popular in our country. And a woman who doesn't give in to your advances, a woman whose husband has died, so you want to take over her property. So, what to do? You brand her as a witch. And then, what is the greatest shame that you can put a woman to? You parade her naked. You disrobe her. So at least now we have acknowledged that this is a kind of crime. And if I tell you that the law against disrobing is very, very strict, in the sense that even abetment of disrobing has been made a crime. Because usually what happens? A single person would not have the courage to do this kind of an act. But people, they draw strength from numbers. So when there's a group of people who are shouting, who are chanting, who are urging a person to do this kind of a crime, then the accused gets more courage from the other people who are standing around. So what is required is, one thing is, the biggest thing is sensitization. Second, awareness amongst women. Most of the time, women are not aware that, okay, this is a crime that can be complained against. She is not knowing that, okay, because she has seen this happening around her. Like coming to sexual harassment cases, majority of the cases, women, they are not aware that this is a crime also. This is not only a civil offense. This is something that can be complained against. Okay, if you go to the police station, nobody is going to turn you away. There is a mandate on them to compulsorily register the FIR or they would be taken to task. So awareness, very, very important. Then this sensitization and strict punishments. Once an accused is apprehended, the person should be punished strictly so that there is a loud message, clear message that goes out.